Hi there, I'm Dr. Joanny Liu, and I'm the founder of Extraordinary Sports Medicine, and where we help athletes reverse their injuries, get back in the game that they love, and improve their lives. And sorry, I had a technical difficulty with Facebook on my iPad, which is why I had to scramble and get my phone out instead, because, oh well, these things happen. I just find that Facebook is a bit sensitive when it comes to things like this. Don't know why, but anyway, the topic today is the future of concussion treatment is now. And I want to talk about why this is so important. Because right now, we really need innovation. We need innovation for a large part of the population which isn't getting a whole lot of help right now. And even so, it's kind of weird because when we're talking about the brain, we should be trying to treat the brain, right? And I suppose, you know, if you have eye problems, vision problems, they are trying to do that, but it's still from a very physical point of view. And so that's why treatments like this still fail, because they're still looking at the physical. The thing is that the brain is made up of three parts. So we have the reptilian brain, which is a very small part, you know, so it's in the back at the bottom of our head here, and they call that the fear part, okay? So it's very primitive. It was the first type of brain that any animals ever had on Earth, and so it really comes down to survival, okay? So if something attacks you, then that activates that part of the brain, and it's and it really does trigger what you're going to be doing next. The next part is what I call the stress response part of the brain. So that's the middle part of the brain. And those parts that I'm most interested in are the hypothalamus and the hippocampus. The hypothalamus actually, you know, kicks off the stress response, and it sends signals all the way down the spine down to the adrenal glands, and there are two separate reactions down there. One part of the adrenal gland. It actually sends out adrenaline, and the other part sends out cortisol, right, which is the stress hormone. And the hypothalamus is also talking to the hippocampus. The hippocampus is monitoring the amount of the cortisol that's going into the bloodstream, and at a certain point, it starts telling the hypothalamus, okay, you can stop now, okay, you can stop now. So normally when we're under a little bit of stress, you know, calming down is pretty easy. Calming down happens within a few minutes. And so, you know, the stress response was activating the sympathetic nervous system. And then the calming down is because the parasympathetic nervous system starts to kick in, and it starts sending in stuff like oxytocin. Things like that start calming us down. So within a few minutes, that's a good thing, right? But if you're under a lot of chronic stress, if you're chronically unhappy about whatever it is that's going on in your life, and maybe some of you may not think that you're unhappy, but the thing is that if anything is dissatisfying to you, anything that's causing you emotional pain, then yes, you're not happy, okay? Because happiness is the very opposite of pain, because emotional pain is real. And then we have this big thing on the top, you know, so the frontal lobe and this huge brain that's on top, and that's where the logic and the reasoning happens. But the thing is that today there is a couple of studies about cognitive behavioral therapy, okay, that's being used in cases with people with post-concussion syndrome. However, you know, so that's about changing behavior. But the thing is, there is no change in behavior unless the person really wants to change behavior. And the other thing is what is actually driving that behavior. And what drives that behavior is always the emotional state. So cognitive behavioral training or training is definitely missing a big point here. And that's what we have to contend with. That's because we already have clues. It's already in the way people are talking about the symptoms in concussions and post-concussion syndrome. They talk about the emotional part. So isn't that where we should be starting? Before we can actually do anything about the cognitive part of our brain, we've got to take care of the emotional parts, because our emotional state actually drives the decisions that we make, and it also drives whether we can think clearly enough so that we can actually take advantage of this big brain that we've got here, okay? So that's why we have to look at different things. We have to be innovative. And so that means, in my case, that we have to look at helping people resolve the issues in their lives, and we need them to know that things can get better. We need to teach people how to be optimistic again, how to be resilient, to have faith, to have trust in life again. Because when you're saddled with a brain injury, it is one of the most horrible things possible. Because what do you do without your brain? Okay, so your brain and your heart are probably the most important parts that you have, okay? I mean, well, okay. Arguably, the reason why the heart is there is because you can be brain dead, but until your heart stops beating, you're still living, okay? It's not much of a life, but you're still alive. And the heart and the brain talk to each other a lot. Actually, mostly the heart talks a lot to the brain. So the heart is actually directing the brain. But the thing is that we can really do much more good for people if we actually stop being afraid of emotional states and start actually helping people to deal with them. Okay? Because the emotional stuff actually gets more emphasized when a person is suffering from post-concussion syndrome. So we got to start there. And we got to start there as soon as possible. I mean, Timmy is another person who just made a wonderful video for me. He's a teenager, and he got into trouble while he was playing a soccer match. And he went for a slide tackle, and he got kicked in the head in the process. And that's when his concussion started and when trouble started. And he's got most of his issues under control, which is great. He still has some other stuff that he needs to contend with. But the thing is, he hasn't been cleared to play his favorite sports. And he's having trouble at school, and his teachers aren't understanding what's going on. You know, this is a bright kid, and he's still bright. That hasn't changed. It's just that right now, on a temporary basis, he has problems reading, okay? Now, there was a young man in April of 2016, last year, in Plano, Texas, who sustained a concussion when he was playing his very favorite sport, basketball. And he also wasn't cleared, okay? He wasn't cleared to play again, and so that basketball was his life. He breathed, lived, drank, ate it. And all of a sudden, he had nothing to do. So he started hanging out with the wrong crowd. You know, and his family and his friends are watching this, and they can't do anything. It was so sad. And so he got a second concussion when he got into a fight with these new friends of his. And his family just saw him spiraling even more down. And the thing is that there was no help for him. There was no help. Nobody could do anything for him. Everybody just sat around being helpless, watching him go down the spiral. And then it finally happened last April when he killed his mother and his younger brother, and then he committed suicide. And then suddenly a whole entire family was wiped off the face of the earth. And when you look at these people's pictures, they were so beautiful. They were so beautiful. Why did this have to happen? It's because there was no innovative way for these people, for him to heal. There was nothing that people could do for him in conventional medicine, and that is why Hope for Millions with brain injury is so damn important. It's so important. I don't want another McCann Utu Jr. to happen. I want people like Timmy and Tina Louise to get well. And they're committed, okay? They're committed to being part of this research project. And all I can say is that we need to help them as soon as possible. So please donate to Hope for Millions with brain injury at GoFundMe.com. Thank you very much, and talk to you soon. Bye.